So one day, my colleague Omri Shimron came into my office. Omri is a professor of music and a pianist, and he wanted to talk to me about teaching the Foundations of Music Theory course. This is a course he'd taught successfully at Elon. He taught it elsewhere. His students said he did pretty well, his colleagues thought he did pretty well, but Omri was frustrated. One of the key skills he was trying to teach in this course is called ear training. It's the capacity to hear music and to be able to write it down, to know what you're hearing exactly in complicated musical pieces. And Omri said his students really struggled with ear training. They weren't getting as far as he wanted in this 2-semester course, and they didn't like it. And he couldn't figure out what to do. He had read about teaching ear training, he'd studied teaching ear training, he'd done everything he was supposed to do, and he was at sort of wit's end. And so we talked for a while, and what Omri ended up doing is working with a colleague of mine through our Center for Teaching and working with 3 former students to redesign how he taught ear training in this course. He invited 3 students to work with him. These students had done well in past courses, but they weren't necessarily stars. And Omri, someone from the Teaching Center, and these 3 students met for more than a whole semester. First, they looked at everything Omri had done in the past with ear training. They looked at his course evaluations. They looked at his notes for how to teach it. They looked at the assignments. Then during the semester, as Omri was teaching it, these 3 students would visit his class. They'd watch students do homework with permission. They interview students, and they could see the students struggling, see the students succeeding. And at the end of the semester, Omri sat down with these students, and together they reorganized the way he taught ear training in the course. The next time he taught it, students did better. Students did markedly better than they had done before. And what Omri says is some of what was funny about this experience is he didn't radically change everything. He changed the way he framed ear training and explained it to his students. He changed how much of the work was individual and how much of it was done together. And he changed how he talked to students about ear training. And that in itself was enough to change student performance on this key skill. And Omri said he could not have done that without these students. The point of this story is that undergraduates are assets, they're allies in our work as educational developers. In fact, they bring knowledge and perspectives that we don't have and that our faculty colleagues don't have. And so we need to tap into that. We need to bring students as partners into our work in educational development so that we can do the best work we can. Now, you might be thinking at this point, but wait, I have a PhD, and I've taught college. And these students at a place like Elon, they're 18 years old, they're 20 years old. They don't have disciplinary training like we do. They don't have pedagogical training like we do. And that's right. And what I'm saying when I'm advocating for partnership with students, I'm not saying we should give up our expertise. What I'm saying is students bring perspectives and knowledge that we don't have. In Omri's case, Omri had grown up overseas, and he couldn't remember a time when he could not hear music and know what he was hearing. His students at Elon almost all grew up in the United States, playing in band, which he didn't do, singing in chorus, which he didn't do, listening to American pop music, which he didn't do. And almost none of them can do what it takes to ear train. So what these students who were his partners in this project had is they had the perspective of American students who had been students in his class and who had learned ear training. They were near peers to Omri's students now. And so they brought perspectives of novices. They brought perspectives, in his case, of American students who could help him understand what was easy and what was hard, what was working and what wasn't. So it's not partnering with students is not about giving up your expertise. It's about inviting other expertise into your course planning and your teaching. Well, you might say, okay, so I'm not giving up my expertise, but I already ask my students for feedback. I'm a good professor. As an educational developer, we always encourage faculty to gather feedback. There's a huge difference, I think, between gathering the occasional bits of feedback and partnering with students. I think students come to us ready to give us superficial, quick feedback. How are things going? They've been trained in our culture to give sort of customer-oriented feedback. I like it, I don't. That's not what we're asking for in a partnership project. What we're asking for in a partnership project is what's helping you learn? Where are you struggling? That kind of question takes more than just a quick 2-minute, 5-minute, 20-minute exercise. It takes sustained work together where faculty and educational developers can learn to understand student perspectives and really hear them, and students can learn to speak in ways about these things that they can be heard and that they can have an influence, right? So it takes a depth, it takes a sustained amount of time, and it takes a sharing of power and sharing of risks. If you ask a student to be your partner, you're asking her or him to step out of familiar roles and to do something that might be somewhat threatening, somewhat intimidating to them. So you need to show to partner with students. I think there's 2 ways we can do this. One way we can do this is like Omri's story, where we can bring students and faculty together to work as partners on a project, on a course design project, an assignment design project, on something else. A second thing we can do is we can bring students as partners into our own work as educational developers. So they're helping us, not faculty, do our work. A quick example of that is the SALT program at Bryn Mawr College and Haverford College in Pennsylvania. SALT is Students as Learners and Teachers. SALT undergraduates are paid students working with the Teaching and Learning Institute at Bryn Mawr. They are part of a seminar that meets weekly through the academic year. And they also are assigned to work with an individual faculty member for an entire semester. Before the semester begins, they meet with that faculty member and they talk about the faculty member's goals for the course that the SALT person is going to be consulting on. They talk about what the faculty member wants feedback about, wants the SALT consultant to observe, wants the SALT consultant to talk to other students about, right? And then through the whole semester, at least once a week, the SALT student visits class. At least once a week, the SALT student talks to the faculty member. And weekly, there's a seminar for these SALT consultants where they talk to each other about what they're seeing in classes and how they can work effectively with faculty and with students. This program has been so successful that Bryn Mawr College and Haverford College now both create incentives for new faculty to have a SALT consultant the first semester they teach at the university. So this has become part of the new faculty orientation at both institutions, to have a student partner who can help you understand what's happening in your class, understand where students are learning, understand where students are struggling. It's a really powerful example of educational developers partnering with undergraduates to do our own work better. Now, this is not easy. One of the things that comes up when you are in partnership like this is questions around power. It makes us as faculty or educational developers step out of our familiar role as experts, as the knowledgeable person, as the one in charge, and actually cede some degree of our control to students. But we do that in a way that is invitational. We don't have to take their advice. We don't have to do everything that we say. We just need to listen carefully to what they're saying and try to understand the perspectives they're representing. It's also difficult for students. They often come to us trained to listen to us, not to speak honestly to us and directly to us. So in our work here, we found it takes time for faculty and students working together to develop a real partnership. The payoff of doing this, though, is really strong. We've done research. I've done research with my colleague Alison Cook-Sather at Bryn Mawr, Kathy Bovell at the University of Glasgow. And what we found is that this kind of partnership has really deep and powerful benefits for students and for faculty and for educational developers. It changes how we think about what it means to be a teacher or a student. It changes how we act in the classroom as students and faculty, and it changes how we understand learning and the purpose of what we're doing. All of those things have powerful ripples into our own teaching, into our work as educational developers, and into the way students behave in the classroom and on our campuses. My favorite quote from an interview I've done with students all over the country on this is a student, an Elon student who I interviewed almost 10 years ago, who'd been in a partnership redesigning a course. And the student said, I think some faculty are so focused on getting stuff done that they don't pay attention to their students, who I think are the most valuable resources in the classroom. When it comes right down to it, the purpose of our work is to support the best possible education for our students. My question for you is, do we do that to our students, or do we do that with our students? And I think partnership is a way of shifting our orientation towards students, towards educational development, and towards teaching and learning. So it's something we are doing with students as partners and allies rather than the objects of